The courtroom in Westlake City fell silent as Judge Richard Harmon slammed his gavel down and sneered. "A woman like you doesn't belong here unless you're serving coffee." The black woman standing before him didn't flinch. Dr. Amara Washington simply smiled, her posture remaining perfectly straight. Exactly 10 minutes later, he was the one in handcuffs. The Westlake County Courthouse was unusually crowded that morning. Judge Richard Harmon, known throughout the state for his harsh sentences and cold demeanor, sat elevated above everyone else, his black robe flowing around him as he glared down like he owned every soul in the room. His reputation preceded him. 27 years on the bench had earned him nicknames like the Hammer and No Mercy Harmon among the legal community. Opposite him stood Dr. Amara Washington, a poised, elegantly dressed black woman in her early 40s. Her charcoal gray suit was impeccably tailored, her natural hair styled in a sophisticated updo. Despite the tension in the room, her amber eyes reflected nothing but calm determination. The pearl earrings she wore had belonged to her grandmother, a woman who had marched with Dr. King and taught Amara that dignity couldn't be taken, only surrendered. But Judge Harmon didn't see any of that. All he registered was her skin color. "You must be lost, Dr. Washington," he said, emphasizing her title with mocking disbelief. "This courtroom doesn't entertain frivolous complaints from people looking for handouts." Scattered laughter echoed from the gallery, mostly from the regular courthouse staff who knew better than to not laugh at the judge's jokes. Amara didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. She simply opened her leather portfolio with deliberate slowness. What Judge Harmon didn't know, what nobody in the courtroom knew, was that Dr. Amara Washington wasn't just anyone. She held 3 degrees, a doctorate in criminal justice from Yale, a law degree from Columbia, and a master's in forensic psychology. For the past 8 years, she had been working as a special investigator for the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, specializing in judicial misconduct. Before that, she had been a respected professor at Georgetown. But 15 years ago, her younger sister Zora had stood in a courtroom much like this one. Judge Harmon had sentenced her to 12 years for a crime that evidence later proved she couldn't have committed. Zora served 7 years before being exonerated, but by then the damage was done. She had missed watching her son grow up. Her marriage had dissolved. Her career as a promising young architect had evaporated. Since then, Amara had redirected her considerable talents toward one goal, holding corrupt judges accountable. And today, she wasn't in court for a complaint or a lawsuit. She was here on official business. "Let me guess," Judge Harmon continued, barely glancing at the file in front of him. "You're crying discrimination again? Playing the race card?" His thin lips curled into what he probably thought was a smile but looked more like a sneer. "I'm not here for sympathy, Your Honor," Amara replied, her voice smooth and controlled. "I'm here for justice." Judge Harmon rolled his eyes dramatically. "Typical. You people always want to twist the law to suit your agenda." The words hung in the air like poison. Several attorneys in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. The court reporter's fingers hesitated over her machine. Amara looked directly at the court reporter. "Is that being recorded?" she asked quietly. The young woman nodded slowly, her eyes wide. "Good," Amara said, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. Judge Harmon leaned forward, his patience visibly thinning. "So what imaginary grievance are you presenting today? Let's get this over with so I can move on to real cases." Amara removed a sealed envelope from her portfolio and handed it to the bailiff. "This is a federal warrant, signed and approved this morning by the Ninth Circuit. It charges you, Judge Richard Harmon, with obstruction of justice, judicial misconduct, and racially motivated sentencing patterns spanning 2 decades. The judge laughed out loud, the sound echoing off the wood-paneled walls. "What kind of joke is this? Who put you up to this?" Then Amara reached into her jacket pocket and produced her credentials. Special Investigator Dr. Amara Washington, Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. Gasps filled the courtroom. The same people who had laughed earlier now stared in stunned silence. The court clerk dropped her pen. Judge Harmon stood up abruptly, his face flushing red, then draining to ashen white in rapid succession. This is outrageous. You can't just walk into my courtroom and—" "You seem to be confused, Judge Harmon." Amara cut him off, her voice carrying effortlessly through the now silent room. "This isn't your courtroom anymore." She nodded to the clerk. "Please call in Agents Patel and Rodriguez." Two federal agents, a South Asian woman and a Latino man, entered through the side door, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Judge Harmon took a step back, his knuckles white as he gripped the bench. "Wait, you're serious?" His voice had lost its authoritative edge, now thin and reedy with disbelief. The agents approached the bench as Amara read the charges aloud, her voice clear and unwavering. "Richard Edward Harmon, our investigation has uncovered that you have wrongfully sentenced at least 53 Black and Latino defendants with clear patterns of extreme bias. You've rejected appeals without review, denied basic constitutional rights in your courtroom, and created a hostile legal environment for minorities. The statistical disparities in your sentencing are so extreme that they could not possibly have occurred by chance." Judge Harmon was visibly shaking now, his hands trembling as he tried to straighten his robe. "This can't be happening. I've served on this bench for nearly 30 years. I have friends in the governor's office in Washington." "Yes, we know about those friends too," Amara replied calmly, "several of whom have already been interviewed regarding their knowledge of your activities." She took a step closer to the bench, lowering her voice slightly. 15 years ago, you sentenced my sister, Zora Washington, to 12 years for a robbery she couldn't have committed. The evidence of her innocence was in the discovery files that your office conveniently misplaced. She served 7 years before the Innocence Project found that evidence. She missed her son's entire childhood, but your time is up now." The courtroom had become so quiet you could hear the ancient heating system humming in the walls. Judge Harmon's face contorted with recognition, then fear. "Washington. I remember that case, but I didn't know. I was just following the prosecutor's recommendation." "You knew exactly what you were doing," Amara said, her composure never wavering. "Just as you knew what you were doing with every excessive sentence, every dismissive comment, every life you casually ruined from that bench." As Agent Patel read him his rights, cameras began clicking from the back of the courtroom. Somehow, the press had gotten wind of what was happening. News reporters were already gathering in the hallway outside, their voices creating a growing buzz of excitement. Judge Harmon, once proud and powerful, was now speechless as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Not like this, not in front of everyone." Amara met his eyes. "My sister begged you for mercy in this very room. She told you she had a 5-year-old son who needed her. You told her she should have thought of that before becoming a criminal. You didn't grant her dignity then, but I'm not you." She turned to Agent Rodriguez. "Please ensure the judge is treated with the full respect due to any citizen accused of a crime. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law." As he was escorted out, people in the courtroom began to murmur, then talk openly. Some were former defendants. Some were family members of those who had suffered under his rulings. One elderly Black woman stood up and simply said, "Thank you, Jesus," tears streaming down her face. After the commotion died down, Amara stood on the courthouse steps, the spring sunshine warming her face. Reporters thrust microphones toward her, shouting questions. But her attention was drawn to a young Black girl, no more than 12, watching from the edge of the crowd with wide, intelligent eyes. "Are you really going to put the judge in jail?" the girl asked when Amara approached her. Amara knelt down to meet her at eye level. "That's not up to me. He'll get something we make sure everyone gets now, a fair trial." "My mom says the system is rigged," the girl said, her eyes serious beyond her years. "Parts of it have been," Amara admitted. "That's why we have to fix it, not abandon it. What's your name?" "Destiny," the girl replied. "Well, Destiny, remember this. Never let anyone tell you where you belong. You belong wherever your talents and hard work take you." As the girl smiled, Amara pulled out a worn photograph from her wallet, a picture of her sister Zora, taken before her wrongful conviction, laughing with her young son at a park. She looked at it for a moment, then tucked it away. Facing the assembled news crews, Amara spoke clearly into the forest of microphones. "To everyone watching, never let power go unchecked. Never let prejudice wear a robe. And if someone tells you that you don't belong, don't argue, prove them wrong with your excellence." She paused, looking directly into the main camera. "I'm not a judge, but today, the scales of justice moved a little closer to balance." What the news cameras didn't capture was what happened next. As Amara walked back to her car, her phone rang. It was her sister Zora. "It's done," Amara said simply. There was a long silence on the other end, then a soft sob. "Thank you," Zora whispered. "Does this mean you're coming home now?" Amara looked back at the courthouse, where another group of people had gathered, families holding photos of loved ones, all with stories of injustice at Judge Harmon's hands. "Not yet," she said quietly. "This was just the beginning." What no one in that courtroom realized was that Judge Harmon's case was part of a much larger investigation. Amara's team had identified a network of corrupt judges across 5 states, all connected through a private prison corporation that benefited from their harsh sentencing practices. The corporation paid for judicial conferences at luxury resorts, made donations to their re-election campaigns, and even provided scholarships for their children. Judge Harmon was just the first domino to fall, and as Amara drove away from the Westlake County Courthouse, she knew that the real work was just beginning. The path to justice wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon, and she was in it for the long run. If this story moved you, remember that justice isn't just an ideal, it's something we must actively pursue every day. Share it with someone who believes change is impossible. It isn't. And if you've ever been told you don't belong somewhere, remember Dr. Amara Washington's words: "You don't need permission to fight back, you just need courage."